Dr. Sasha Faust is a licensed psychologist. She's also a gifted psychic medium and spiritualist. We talk about the blending of the spiritual, psychic, and traditional therapy in this gold conversation.
My name is Dr. Sasha Faust, and I am a licensed clinical psychologist, psychic medium, and author of Waking Up. And I'm happy and excited to be here.
And we are happy and excited you're here because I always love talking with someone who's a licensed psychologist, clinician, but they have the woo side too, the psychic ability, the mediumship, the pendulum, whatever, tarot. So I want to ask you first off, how did you come to working as a therapist and decided to get licensed as a therapist? Take us back to that whole trajectory.
My family of origin, there's a lot of therapists there. My biological father is a psychologist. My oldest brother is a psychologist. My mother had her master's in college counseling, so it was sort of ingrained at a young age. Some of my earliest memories are talking about like Freud at the dinner table. But I really tried to resist it. I did not want to pursue the field out of almost rebellion. But then took a course in psychology in high school and just absolutely fell in love with it. And being able to learn tangible ways to help others and provide space and offer healing was really appealing to me. And then I lost a dear friend to suicide when I was 18.
Mm.
Um, and that really solidified it for me that, okay, this is what I'm gonna pursue. And so I majored in it and kind of followed the path.
Wow, that's a remarkable lineage that you have, and that you followed the path, but sort of on your own means and with your own direction and intent. That suicide of the friend sounds like it had a very strong impact on you. How does that relationship and that experience affect you today?
Oh, I mean, that's an interesting question. I think I his name was Walter Robin, and I want to take a moment just to give him some street cred because he was a wonderful, wonderful human. And when he passed, that was actually the first person that I had ever lost at the time. And so it was very profound. And at the time, it felt like there was not really any warning. And so it was very unexpected, very sudden. I grew up in a small town. I'm from Rhode Island, and so very much rippled throughout the community. Uh, and so I would say, I'll try my best to describe this all as linear as possible, but growing up as a child, I was able to see spirits, connect to the divine. My personal belief, I think we all can. I think it's just sort of um, how much you're open to it. But that was, hmm, I guess it was sort of. I'm not quite sure how you describe it, but like shrugged away. Like it certainly wasn't reinforced. And Rhode Island is, again, it's a small place. You want to kind of fit in and blend in. So I kind of set that aside, as well as it was very scary as a child. And so after Walter passed, as I shared, he was the first person that I lost to death. And so that sneaky man started sending me signs. And at first, I really just tried to ignore it, but the signs persisted. And I couldn't ignore it at a certain point. And how he impacts me today is that I would say he was a major catalyst to um, reclaiming my spirituality, reclaiming those psychic mediumship gifts. And with my book, Waking Up, I dedicated it to him as well as credited him as a co-author because He was much of the inspo for it. And so he continues to guide me. Uh, in my book, I share how he's the most secure and healthy relationship I've ever had. And I feel incredibly like I have this fire within me because I want to not only spread and do good representing me, but if I can continue to share his presence with others, he gets to live on through me. So uh, I would say he continues to impact me by being a wonderful soul that helps me spread the good.
So, waking up, when did that come into the picture? Because, I mean, the traditional licensing system to practice therapy and to be a physician and a clinician is very different than allowing your spirit to be free. And was that sort of a replication of some of the squashing that happened in your childhood, going through that experience and then moving to a place where you were writing your book?
Well, I would say I moved to California for graduate school, and I'm in Southern California, and it's quite a bit more open, in my opinion, and experience than Rhode Island. And so I was able to be more of myself with less judgment or stigma. And with writing, I've just always loved writing. Like it's probably my first love. I mean, as soon as I can remember, I was like tugging at the pant leg of the nearest adult just to write down what was in my brain. And for me, I've come to recognize that yes, it's writing, but more so it's channeling. And so I will get these sort of phrases in my mind. I would get these phrases in my mind and just how to get them out. And so waking up originally wasn't even really a thing. I would just like go out in nature and channel and write, and I would put them in journals. And it wasn't until last year, early last year, that I started sifting through the journals and, copying and pasting my favorite excerpts and recognizing like, okay, this is getting to be about 300 pages. This might be the book that I felt destined to write. I'd always known that I wanted to write a book. That was always a part of my path, but I certainly didn't expect it to unfold in this way. So I would say it's a mix of yes, me, my essence, my soul, as well as spirit speaking through me.
In your practice, in your official clinician practice, can you use that? Do you use that? I would think you would have to, just being connected now and awakened as you are. But how much of that is really permitted? And is there a balance you have to maintain because of, what legal, standards are laid down for someone like you? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's an interesting question and very new. So, as sort of a disclaimer, ethical and legal standards, maybe not ethical, but legal standards are different per county and state. So, California could be different than Rhode Island. But what I will say, as if we're kind of channeling strictly me as a psychologist and my practice there with clients, it's complicated. I have to be very careful because ethically, for example, if I had a client that came to me who was an atheist, I'm not going to then necessarily share my spirituality, unless they name that they want it a part of treatment. So currently, how I practice is that I would not introduce it unless a client expressed that curiosity, expressed that interest, shares that it's a part of their life. Um, I mean, I've had clients ask me about it, and I try, so much in grad school, they tell you be very mindful of what you disclose because you don't want the space to become about you. And so that's an interesting and tricky balance. But I would say when clients request it, it's a lot of fun. Not that traditional therapy without it isn't fun, but I would say it adds a unique layer.
I have to say, for me, traditional talk therapy, which I did for off and on for about 25 years. It was really good for laying down the narrative, my storyline. But what I didn't feel it did was really shift me on an internal cellular level. That came from more somatic modalities. And I found after 25 years off and on of talk therapy, I came back to the same issue. Different storyline, but same issue. And it wasn't until I did that somatic work that I really made large shifts. Is that typical?
I think, and certainly I do not represent every therapist or psychologist. This is simply my perspective. But what I believe is typically traditional therapy is more so focused on symptom relief. Um, so much of how we're trained is to target particular mental health symptoms like depression, anxiety, things like that, versus, like you're saying, create that true shift in which you feel it from the inside out. And so I think a lot of therapists are focused on perhaps providing that relief, which is great. I have no problems with that. What I try to do is really, yes, go within. And I think part of my practice and my philosophy as a clinician is to, as much as possible, help guide someone to their highest self, their highest timeline, help create changes that really drastically improve their quality of life. Yes, I'll teach skills, things like, I don't know, meditation or deep breathing to help with certain symptoms, but I also want to really help people feel empowered, help people understand that, again, this is my personal belief, but that we are all here for a reason, likely many reasons. And so, how can we reclaim your sovereignty, reclaim your power, help you feel like your best self, and be able to go about, move through the world, not only feeling comfortable, confident, secure in your own skin, but being able to kind of spread your message, whatever that looks like, truly live in your passion, um, live for you as well as live for other people in the
And
sense of spreading spreading the good and the joy and the love.
yeah. And in your practice now, are there specific themes that are repeating? You're seeing it more and more with clients right now as they come to you with their issues?
That's also a very interesting question. I think and I know the research talks about this as well, but I mean, certainly since the pandemic hit, that has had a lasting impact on the clients that I work with, whether it be truly trauma from the lockdown or quarantine or whatever that might have looked like for them, and their area, their life, um, but also how it affected perhaps like their socialization. I've had a lot of folks that they were in like high school or even middle school when there was a lockdown, and how that really sort of course, not only impacted them, but led to grief of what they didn't necessarily get that others did. I think I've also seen a rise in depression with my clients. I don't want to say for sure, but I would say at least the bulk of my clients right now have depression and a lot of trauma. I would say that there's more trauma appearing. I don't know if that's necessarily because we're being more traumatized. I hope not. But I would like to think it's related to um, stigma going down and people having more of these conversations, more maybe comfortability or empowerment or stamina to name, like, hey, I'm struggling and this is what's happened to me. Um, and I think that folks are also, for the most part, I would say more informed. I have a love-hate relationship, like many of us do, with social media. I think it can be wonderful in many ways, but I think it can be concerning in others. And while I'm happy that there's more information being spread around mental health, I also caution the audience to be discerning because there can be some things that are just not accurate. But it's fun because a lot more people are having these conversations with me that I don't think were really quite as much of a thing when I first started in 2016. There's just more of a knowledge. And the last thing I'll say is that, um, I love working with all ages. Something that's inspiring to me is how, uh, I mean, for lack of a better word, like woke, younger generations are now. I feel like they are so much more aware than I ever was at their ages. I mean, even my clients as young as like 12, the things that they know about mental health, how aware they seem to be about wanting to be a good person, not only for themselves, but for others is really inspiring. Conversations around stigma and racism and hatred, all the isms. It's a lot more, it's happening more. So I feel good about the youth of our generation. I'm still youth, but the young youth, they seem a lot more aware, and I really enjoy the conversations that we have because I certainly was not having that at 12.
Oh no, that was put in a box for sure. When I was 12, you didn't even go to a therapist because it was so taboo.
Yes. I mean, even for me growing up, you did not. Again, I grew up in Rhode Island, so it's a very small town. And not to try, I love Rhode Island. But it just wasn't a conversation. Like, if you were, at least in my experience, if you were in therapy, you did not talk about it. And it was sort of a hush hush thing. Like, there was that stigma so laid out. So I love that even my friends today, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to therapy. My therapist this. Like, it's a lot more open, and I'm so grateful for that because everyone needs help from time to time, whether it be from your friends or a professional, and being able to have that space is sacred.
Yeah, completely. So back to your gifts, your spiritual gifts, your psychic ability, your mediumship. How do you engage in that? How do you practice that? What give me the tangible feel of what that is and how that works for you.
I'll try my best. How I engage with it is, oh, well, as I shared when I was younger, it was very scary. Not necessarily because anything negative happened, but predominantly when I would see clairvoyantly the most clearly was at night when I was trying to go to bed. And some of my earliest memories are trying to sleep and just being like surrounded by spirits. And that is very uncomfortable for a child who doesn't understand at all what is happening. And so, as I shared, close that off. And I think now how I engage with it is recognizing that I am a sovereign and autonomous person and that I have control of when spirits are present. That if I'm ever uncomfortable for whatever reason, I can always say, like, please, I set a boundary just like I would with another person. I also very much do what I can to practice in the light, in love, in source energy. So every morning I wake up and I pray to source. I write gratitude. I read a little affirmation script. I pull an oracle card and then I meditate. So I try to start in that essence uh, of light. And I always, everything I say, or I'm sorry, every time in the morning I repeat, just use me as a conduit for unconditional love, a conduit for source, speak through me, work through me. And so that's a big part of how I relate or anchor in my spirituality, as well as talking to other folks that explore their spirituality, doing what I can, whether it be with my channeling or writing, spreading that on social media. If you stalk me on social media, I think it's fair to say it's very much positive, trying to spread goodness of the light and inspiration that we can live our highest timeline.
So, where do we find you? First on social media and then your website as well.
My Instagram is Dr. Sasha the Enchanted Oracle, I believe. Might want to put that in the bio, but I believe it's at Dr. Sasha underscore enchanted underscore oracle. Um, and then my website is enchantedmindscid.com, Scid being doctor of psychology. I think that's really all I have for social media, although I wonder about expanding it. I just also appreciate balance. Uh, so yeah, that's some of the ways that you can find me.
Yeah. And if people want to learn how to work with their gifts, do people also come to you specifically for that, knowing that you have that ability and more?
Yes. So, my practice is comprised of individual therapy, group therapy, and I also do workshops for folks that are interested, whether it be psychology or spirituality, ways to help awaken that, attune to your gifts. Again, I do not think that this is anything necessarily unique. I think that we all have these abilities. I also can do some mentorship if folks are interested in that, spiritual mentorship. And then, of course, I do mediumship readings and psychic readings. So I am here to help expand what is already within you.
Ah, beautifully said and beautiful work that you're providing. Really grateful you were here because this conversation about traditional therapy versus other modalities and mixing the spirituality, the mediumship, the psychic ability with traditional forms of therapy is really something that intrigues me and I think we're going to see more of. So I really want to thank you for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's a lot of fun, and I just enjoy being able to have these conversations. And as you shared, that it is expanding because I'm not sure how much this was happening 10 years ago. So I'm grateful to be here.
The fact that you're here able to talk about it is showing how far we've come. Yeah.